In this video, we're going to talk about Rule 261, CTKS structure before the news. The reason that this rule is so important has got to do with Rule 268. CTKS structure determines price waves, and I'm going to prove to you that structure moved the markets in the past trading session. I'm sharing with you things that have taken me 4 decades to learn inside financial markets, and you will find when you choose learning, success will choose you. Let's run the numbers. Hi everyone, I'm Ken from CryptoTradingKS and the CTKS Method. If you're new, a very warm welcome and welcome back CTKS family. My goal is to help you to become more of a financial and emotional blessing to yourself and those you love, learning real wealth and positive excellence in the process. My focus is to help you to decode financial markets and to look at markets like institutions do, and not as retail. We can see in the past trading session, the Dow Jones came up slightly, the S&P came up slightly, the Nasdaq slightly down, the Russell 2000 slightly up. And we can also see that the VIX came up 1.25% in the past trading session. It's definitely important to be aware of the news, but if you want to know why price moves as it does, the answer is simple, it is structure. I can explain to you exactly why the S&P 500 did what it did. And the good news is that I share the tools that I use to assess market action so you can do it independently of me. I want you to become an institution of one. Very interesting headline here. JP Morgan traders turn bullish on US stocks but warn of pain to come. I don't get it. Maybe they're saying something like this, it's going to go down before it goes up. I want to get you so good that you can create these headlines yourself. You can interpret them and you can see what the professionals see before they speak. In yesterday's video, we said the S&P 500 is getting into some pretty important territory. If we manage to break out here, it's really good. That's the bullish news. But if we retrace, we've got quite a lot of underpinning structure underneath price action, hovering at around that 53.80 mark on the S&P 500 E-mini futures. Now, something to note, and a lot of people will not necessarily understand this, Bitcoin is slightly curling over. And if Bitcoin was really going for it, we would assume that the S&P 500 would break out. The fact that it's not doing that is meaning that this particular area is quite significant. The probability is still on downplay. Remember, in any 24-hour period, the markets can get very, very volatile, including crypto, but especially crypto. And we saw this leg down here. Now, what I'm going to do is to show you a chart that actually explains what happened yesterday. It's actually the VIX, the fear gauge of the main market. Now, this particular yellow line is a very significant line, and I'll just zoom out a little bit later to show you why it's so significant. The VIX broke out from that line, came down, and has started to flatline. In yesterday's video, we saw the VIX just hovering here. It took until 11:30 yesterday night for the VIX to wake up and do its thing. Always remember, the US markets are the core of liquidity. Everything happens in US time. If the Asian sessions rally, the US session can wipe it out. Unfortunately, when traders or investors are new, they just look for certainty. Tell me exactly where it's going. Well, we can do that, but we need to look at structure. Now, what is the structure that we need to look at? We first of all understood, and I explained this yesterday, on the VIX we had a lot of structural support playing in at this area. If we had a bounce up, around that 27 area where the VIX would encounter a lot of structural selling and a lot of structural buying in the S&P 500. This is exactly why the S&P 500 did this and did that. Many beginning traders and investors just rely on the news to tell them what's going to happen. The news is always backwards looking. The news price has to print before the news talks about it. But not so with us. And members of the service, you've known that this structure has been in play literally the entire month. Now, what are we seeing right here? We had a fall down on the VIX, which of course led to a rally in stocks and also crypto. But we've seen a positive interaction here. What does this mean? If the VIX starts to come up, we anticipate that the crypto market and the stock market will reject. It will come down. Now, how do we know this outside trading times? We look at the VIX futures. Okay, so let's do that. In yesterday's video, we shot the video right here, and we saw the VIX coming up, which pushed Bitcoin down. And then it started to flatline, and you can see something really interesting. Bitcoin came down and then said, hang on a sec, VIX is not going to go up, because you remember there was a gap inside the structure here and higher levels of structural resistance. But what Bitcoin actually said to us, I don't believe you, VIX, I believe that you're coming down. And that's exactly why Bitcoin came up. And then the main markets opened. The VIX absolutely took just a explosive move up, which crushed crypto down. And as it was doing that, we know on the VIX, structurally it was coming into all of that overhead structural resistance. Bitcoin sniffed it out first and said, hang on a second, I don't believe you're going any further. And then Bitcoin came up as the VIX retraced. Now we know that the VIX has found a degree of structural support through this level, the main VIX, the market VIX. Now, what is Bitcoin saying now? It's saying, I believe that the VIX is going to go up. You must keep your eyes on the structural levels, so let's have a look at that because structure is so critically important. We know that in the VIX main, we had structural resistance right there, and we had a lot of sellers through here. So what actually occurred as the VIX was going up, Bitcoin was already throwing us risk on signals. That is, Bitcoin had oversold itself and was going to start to retrace because the VIX would come down. The very fact that the sellers came in here and pushed the VIX down is very good news. But we've got this particular problem inside the VIX futures. Around that 2342 mark, the structural levels on the VIX are rather strong. So even if the VIX comes down, which means that Bitcoin will come up, we have to contend with this area yet again. And we can't forget that on the VIX proper, we have all of this structural support just playing in through here. The difference between the CTKS method and everything else, the CTKS method is literally the world's most powerful structural indicator. It tells you where smart money is going to buy and sell ahead of time. People just use recent indicative price and draw their support and resistance lines. Because recent indicative price is recent, it always changes. It's like trying to read tea leaves. What I share each and every day is the science of the markets. When we look at Bitcoin, we were here in yesterday's video. Bitcoin did sell down as the market was trying to figure out what would the VIX do, and we saw a terrific rally. I hope you took advantage of that. And when the main markets opened, we saw that tank and that recovery. Now we know why these things happened, and it's got nothing to do with the news. This is exactly why we need to read structure before we read the news, because it tells us where we need to risk off and it tells us where we need to risk on. Also, what I showed in yesterday's video was the overlay of all the E-mini futures and the inversion of the VIX futures. We can see all those inversion. Well, the inversion of the VIX, which is the red line, you can see it tanked down and Bitcoin and the market went in that direction until it came up. It's very important that you keep your eyes on the futures. Now, if we see a higher high from this level starting to emerge, we just need to look at price action and look at how the structure in between the futures and the VIX is playing out. Typically, people get addicted to the news. You should be addicted to structure. Because the structure is independent of opinion, it just exists. In yesterday's video, we were here on total crypto market cap, and now we can see that it did in fact sell off and rallied until the VIX hit structural overhead resistance and sold down, and then found structural support on the VIX proper. All charts are intercorrelated and interconnected. The more you stack probabilities, the more you will win, and the less uncertainty you will have. I just wanted to quickly share some structural levels. When we're looking at ADA, you can see around this 72 mark, whoa baby, there is a lot of overhead structural resistance. If ADA manages to get above 72, it's looking fantastic. But what will that depend on? It will depend on the VIX coming down, the S&P breaking up, the E-mini futures also breaking up, and Bitcoin breaking to the upside. Don't get yourself locked in to any particular path, either up or neutral or down. Stay flexible, stay loose, but not too loose. Looking at Solana over the same period, that 154 area of structural overhead resistance has been a bit of a pain for Solana, but everything is intercorrelated and interconnected. Around that 146.50 mark has been a level of structural support. We've noticed that we've been rejecting this. There is negative downside pressure on Solana at the current time. Always have your bull, bear, and neutral perspectives in alignment. Price can move in any direction at any time because price is always moving in a wave, and globally liquidity flows in and out of different market sessions. But the US session is the session that controls them all. And you can see XRP came into that 236 resistance and rejected, but XRP is looking quite good, just going under a degree of consolidation at the current time. Even though it's in an uptrend, yes it is, it's a weaker uptrend because of our friend, the VIX. When you understand structure more effectively, you will see that when you come up through multiple resistance, structural resistance levels, it is harder and harder for price to keep on going. Typically what happens when everything goes green, retail screams into the market, I'm buying, I'm gonna miss it, and then it does that. This is because retail unfortunately doesn't understand structure. This applies across every single chart. For example, if we look at Apple has been coming up but has been having problems. Why? It is always the same answer. It is structure. We have so many sellers inhabiting Apple's structure at the current time. They're basically saying, thou shall not pass. If you're making your buying decisions based on news headlines and based on charts that you see without structural markup, you're in a lot of trouble because you literally don't know what the hell is going on. Across the decades, I created lots of rules to help me to stop losing money, and one of the ones was structure before news. And when you understand Rule 268, that CTKS structure literally determines price waves, we know exactly why the VIX did what it did and also why the major indexes did what they did. We know that Bitcoin sniffs out risk on or risk off behavior. It is literally always assessing the VIX. Does Bitcoin think that the VIX is going up or down? You will tell by its behavior. Therefore, it's always about choosing learning. What you will find, there are always market lessons that you will have to pay losses on. That's not the problem. What you want to do, when you first start, your losses will be large. When you become professional, your losses will be small, but you cannot avoid them. They're going to hit you sooner or later, and when they do, just be aware that you want to cut them as quickly as possible. That's why structure is so vitally important. It's very important to use the correct tools when you're doing a specific job. Inside the markets, the correct tool to use is always structure. It's really important that you stay positive because the market moves in waves. You can get desynchronized and you can buy on the wave up and sell on the way down. It does happen. But please forgive yourself. You just need to get back into synchronization And always remember, life pullbacks will give you the strength for the next life rally. If you stay dedicated and committed, you focus on either winning or learning and never blaming, you won't push out the responsibility for your own account to external sources. And that is really important. That's just a step on the path of becoming consistently profitable. As many people say, I have no problem with consistency, but the consistency is going in the wrong direction. Just know that opportunities in life reset daily, and the universe does want you to succeed. Instead of going all in and more, just start small and scale. When you buy on red with structural awareness and sell on green with structural awareness, you're going to do incredibly well. Please let me know in the comments, how do you approach the news each day? I think it's a really important question to ask. A lot of people just only focus on the news. For example, if price moves in any specific direction, if it goes up, they're looking to the news. If it goes down, they're looking to the news. They don't look at structure, they look to the news first. This is a wildly big mistake. So maybe the question is, how do you look at structure to verify the news? Have a great day or night ahead, my friends, and Kate and I look forward to catching up with you again in the next video. Bye for now.